Hey Joe. There are a few things that you have right, and there are also a few things that you need just a little refreshing on. So, some of the questions you're asking I can see is how do action potentials begin? What is the flow of action potentials? How does the action potential process repeat? What are the differences between each lobe and part of the brain? And what is the difference between the motor cortex and the somatosensory strip? So the first question, you have some misunderstandings between the difference between potassium and sodium ions. So potassium ions don't enter the neuron, they actually leave the neuron, while sodium ions enter the neuron, creating a positive charge, not a negative charge. Sodium ions are positive, so they create a positive charge. This positive shift in charge causes the neuron to receive stimulation from the inside, and it fires an action potential. You are confident in this section around the fact that electricity is the movement of charge. However, in this case, it is the movement of positive charge and not negative charge. So an easy way to remember this is just think sodium ions enter, and that is Na, and Na is positive. So that's just an easy way to remember that it's going to be a positive charge, Na positive. So just an easy way to remember that. So once the neuron is stimulated enough, you're correct in thinking that the action potential fires down the axon. However, you're confused in understanding that an action potential fires down the axon to the terminal buttons, not the dendrites. So it fires down the axon to the terminal buttons, not the dendrites. Continuously, the synaptic vessels are binded to the terminal buttons and not the dendrites. And also at the synapse, neurotransmitters are released and cross the gap between the sending neuron and the dendrites of the receiving neuron. So you're correct in the fact that the process repeats itself and all begins back at the dendrites. So, next, you have some confusion between the temporal lobe and the occipital lobe. The occipital lobe is devoted to vision, whereas the temporal lobe is devoted to hearing. So just a quick little mix up there. Easy way to remember this is just to think of all the things at the doctor's office that start with oxy and all that, and relate the eye doctor's office is what I meant, and relate the eye doctor's office to the occipital lobe. So eye doctor's office, oxy equals occipital lobe. So that's just an easy way to understand the difference between the temporal lobe and the occipital lobe. Just correlate those two together. Occipital lobe is all about vision, temporal lobe all about hearing. So you're also right in saying that cortexes are more complex than lobes, but you're confused in the difference between the motor cortex and the somatosensory strip. So the motor cortex is part of the frontal lobe, while the somatosensory strip is located in the parietal lobe. And you're asking, how do they play together? How do they work together? And so the somatosensory strip helps you process information through the sense of touch, whereas the motor cortex helps your body deal with the ability to move. Since it's in the frontal lobe, it's just a way to think of it. Parietal lobe is senses, and somatosensory strip touch. Motor cortex, ability to move, frontal lobe. And the best way to remember the correlation between these two things is just to remember what each lobes of them do, and it's easy to correlate how they work together. So since the somatosensory strip deals with touch and the senses, it correlates and works together with the motor cortex to help you move. To make you move based on your touch and senses. So that's how they play together and work together. And so, yeah, I hope this helped you and helped you refresh your memory on a few topics.